so today I want to show you how to make a Swiss roll, and what we're going to do is use something called the whisking method, and I'm going to explain the kind of scientific processes that happen when we're making and we're cooking the cake. Okay, so the ingredients that you need are 50 grams of caster sugar, 2 medium to large eggs, and 50 grams of plain flour if you can get it. If not, self-raising flour will work just as well. You also need a little bit of jam or lemon curd or anything Nutella that you want to put in the middle. You can have some cream as well. If you want to whip some cream up to put in the middle, you can do that. If you want to make a chocolate Swiss roll, all you need to do is take a level tablespoon of flour out and replace that with cocoa powder. Do make sure it's cocoa powder rather than drinking chocolate, because that's got sugar and milk powders in and it'll affect the finished product. Also, what you need to do is to turn your oven on to 180 degrees or gas mark full. Okay, so the first thing that you're going to do is grease your tray. Alright, you do need a Swiss roll tin, and if you haven't got a Swiss roll tin, a normal tray would work, but you would then have to double the amount of your ingredients. Okay, so Swiss roll tray, you need some oil and a pastry brush, and what we're going to do is just down the middle, just draw a line. That's going to act as glue. You do need some good quality grease-proof paper, okay? It's really important that the cake doesn't stick. So what we're going to do is just put it over your tray, and using some scissors, you just want to cut into each of the 4 corners, and this is just going to help the paper stay in the tray and not kind of flap around. So into the 4 corners, like that, if you can see, place that over it and just pop it like so, and fold the corners in on each other. You can trim around the top if you want, but that's what we're kind of looking for in there. And then again, it's really important that we grease this tray well, okay? I tend to just use oil first and get right into the corners. It is a balance mat though. You don't want so much oil on that your cake's actually going to fry and it's going to be all soggy on the bottom. So just, just make sure you do get right into those corners to prevent it from sticking, so it does come out of the tray. Alright, do get your tray done first. The reason being is we're going to be looking at raisin agents today as well, and if you leave the cake out the oven, it will just go flat and you won't have that nice spongy Swiss roll. Okay, so once that's done, put it to one side. Okay, so you need to get a glass bowl, and in that glass bowl we're going to put your caster sugar and we're going to put your eggs in there as well. Now, if you can, your eggs are in the fridge. If you remove them from the fridge a few hours before you cook with them, what will happen is the ovoalbumin, remember, which is the egg white, that will become more stretchy because it's a little bit warmer, and remember, the egg white is going to stretch, and that's what's going to trap the air. And again, this is the main thing that we're going to be looking at. We're going to be looking at that foam formation of the eggs. So your Swiss roll, you're going to use the whole of the egg, so just crack those in, making sure you get no shell on those. And then we're going to add in all of the caster sugar. Okay, so that goes in. Please don't add your flour, alright, just eggs and sugar at the moment. Then I'm going to use an electric whisk, and I'm going to whisk these, and you're going to actually see that foam formation happening. So remember, the reason that happens is because the ovoalbumin in the egg white, but also the sugar. Now the sugar's going to stabilise it. It's going to stop it from flopping down on each other. The egg yolk is there to add richness. It won't trap as much air if I was just using the egg white, but we do need the egg yolk in there for flavour and richness and so forth. So, electric whisk, add your beaters, and we're going to whisk it for about 7 to 8 minutes. Okay, so you'll see the first stage of whisking, it'll just go creamy and light. Keep going, and at the moment what we're doing is, by using the whisks, we are untangling the protein that's in the egg whites. So that is called denaturation. We're breaking down the protein. To denurture something means to break it down. So as you're whisking, we're going to break down the protein molecules, and then as we keep going, as the air gets trapped between those protein molecules, they're going to start to form a new structure. Okay, Okay, so now I've been whisking for about another minute. You can see it's gone paler. You can actually see the air bubbles being formed and it's increased in size. It's still not done though. What we're looking for is something called ribboning, which means that it's kind of becoming a foam, and I'll show you what that looks like when I get to that point. Okay, so another minute or so has just passed, and you can see it's started to go really pale white at the moment. And the test that we're going to do is going to lift the beaters up, and if you can draw your initial, all right, and it stays there, can you see that there? Then it's done. If it disappears really quickly, you need to do it for a little bit longer. With this step, it's much easier to underdo it than overdo it, so I'm going to do this for another minute just to make sure. The more air that we trap at this moment is going to give us a really nice sponge. Or if you don't trap enough air, it can be a bit like a biscuit and really thin. So I'm going to give it another minute, and then I'll show you what the ribboning should look like. Okay, so that's another minute, and you can see now that when I lift it, it's foamy, it's shiny, and it's white, and you can see that trail that's been left, and it doesn't disappear, so we know it's done. So all that is in here is air. Okay, there's no chemical raising agents, and what we do is something called mechanical raising agents. Now, if we bash the beaters off the bowl, you're going to deflate it. If you leave it for even a minute, it's going to start to deflate. So it's really important that we're working quite quickly now with this mixture. So traditionally, Swiss rolls are made all by using mechanical raising agents. So mechanical, again, is just what you do, okay? So you adding air, there's no yeast in there. Yeast is an example of a biological raising agent. Remember, it's a living thing. There's no chemical raising agents, so we should be using plain flour, as I mentioned, rather than self-raising. You're not putting any baking powder or so forth in. So I don't normally like to sieve things because it's more washing up, but for this one it is important. Sieving is another method of mechanical raising agents, just as whisking, beating and folding is. So what I'm going to do is into the sieve and just from a height get all of that lovely flour in. It's going to get rid of the lumps, but also it's going to add a little bit more air. Okay, and then what we're going to do is we're going to fold. So folding is another example of a mechanical raising agent. You've just put all that lovely air into it. You don't want to start to beat it out. Take a tablespoon. It's kind of like a figure of 8. So we fold it and over. Like so. Now you want to do this gently until you can't see any flour lumps. Let's get right down to the bottom of the bowl and don't be tempted to beat it. Round the corners and keep folding because you don't want any lumps of flour in your cake. Okay, now at this point we're also going to add about 2 tablespoons of water. Water is really important because when we put it into the oven, the water turns to steam, and what steam does is it pushes up through the cake, and again it's another mechanical raising agent. So it's going to help to make the cake rise. Now the reason that we've gotten flour in this cake is because it's going to help the mixture with the structure, okay? And it's going to help the cake set. Like so. So just stir in that water, and that'll just loosen your mixture up as well and help it go a little bit further. So what's happened, as I mentioned before, is that we've broken down those protein bonds, we've denatured them. When it goes into the oven, remember when you give heat to protein molecules, they've got to start to coagulate. So when they coagulate, that's going to set the cake. So the eggs in the cake have got lots of different jobs. They've got aeration, they've got foam formation, and they've got denaturation and coagulation. So all of those scientific principles are going on there. Okay, so cake mixture's done. Tray, and all we're going to do is just pour it away from you and get all of the mixture out. If you've got a spatula, use a spatula. You don't want to waste any of this mixture or any of the air. It should naturally just go to the corners. If you forget to put the water in, which some people tend to do, don't think, oh, I'll put it in at the end. Alright, it won't work. If you forgot the water, just we'll have to do without it. In there, and then just roll it just to make sure it's nice and even. And what's really important is that you put it in the oven landscape and it's going to go in the oven for about 8 to 10 minutes. If you overcook it, we won't be able to roll it. Okay, so that's going to go in the oven for 8 to 10 minutes. Remember, it's 180 gas mark. So while it's in the oven, we need to get tidied up and we need to get ready for how we're going to roll it. So please make sure that your surface is nice and clean. If there's any wet or anything, it's going to stick and it's not going to work. And then you're going to take another piece of grease-free paper, roughly the same size as your tin, and you're going to add some sugar onto it. Alright, so just a little bit, about a teaspoon and a half. And this is what we're going to put the cake onto, and we're going to use this to roll it. The sugar's there just to stop the cake from sticking, but also it gives it a nice little crust as well. Your jam, your Nutella, whatever you're using, if you just get a spoon and just start to stir this, that's just going to soften up so it's nice and spreadable. If you want to put cream in the middle of this cake, that's absolutely fine. You can whisk your cake up, but remember, if you put put cream onto a hot cake, this cream's going to melt, it's going to go all over. So I'll show you a little trick to wait for the cake to cool. But if you can do that, get that sorted, get the kitchen nice and tidy, and then just wait for the cake to be cooked.